This week brought some Ohio House members back to the office for an unusual event, a committee hearing during a legislative break to hear testimony on a single bill. And it was the controversial one that would ban all mandatory vaccines in Ohio. That hearing also brought out people who both want to see this bill pass and those who've described it as dangerous. Statehouse correspondent Jo Ingles reports.
They came from all over Ohio to protest vaccine requirements and support the bill being heard inside the Statehouse that would prevent mandatory shots.
Government's gotten too darn big. Really smart people said way back in the day that any government at all is a necessary evil. I think we have too darn much. I think that people in government have decided, I believe that people in government, a lot of them, not all of them, have decided that they work for themselves and not for the people. We are founded on an idea that the power that our government has is based on the consent of the governed. As you can see here today, there's no consent. Coercion is not consent.
Ironically, Boucher and the others are asking state government to block employers, schools, and businesses from mandating employees, students, and customers get vaccines. And the bill being considered by lawmakers wouldn't just cover COVID vaccines, but all mandatory shots, such as those against childhood diseases like measles and meningitis. While mainstream medical groups widely oppose the bill, there are some who work in the medical field who support it.
If I do happen to be diagnosed with COVID, I have researched other treatment options that are inexpensive, safe, and effective. Why mandate a vaccine when other options are out there? It simply comes down to this. Every night, people in the healthcare field allow others to choose their own health interventions. Why can't I?
The bill also bans so-called vaccine passports and would prevent people who are unvaccinated from being denied service, separated, or treated differently from those who have shots. Major business groups, including the Ohio Chamber of Commerce, are opposed to the bill, though all 16 of its sponsors are Republicans. The bill's primary sponsor, Representative Jennifer Gross, was cheered when she stepped into an overflow room at the Statehouse during the testimony. Attendees laid hands on Gross and prayed for her before she went back to the committee room, where she questioned witnesses who disagreed with her bill, like Sarah Jagka, who testified against the bill for the Ohio Chamber of Commerce.
Do you believe the person of the business supersedes the individual right of an individual to choose the vaccine and or then coerce the employee to say this job that you have planned and that you've been educated for, you can no longer earn an income because our right supersedes your individual liberty?
Jagka explained her answer this way.
Your right to individual medical freedom, your right to hold a fist and punch, ends when you start hurting someone else. And that's what we're dealing with. We're not dealing with someone's individual choice of whether they want to do something. We're dealing with them coming into the workplace with a communicable, spreadable disease and hurting other people.
Jagka said the bill would lead to businesses not being able to protect their own employees, customers, and interests. But advocates for kids, such as the Children's Defense Fund, have joined hundreds of healthcare workers, organizations, and major hospital systems in opposing the bill. Pediatrician Emily Miller is with Cincinnati Children's Hospital and said those who work in hospitals like hers are exhausted from caring for sick patients who could be saved with COVID vaccines.
Only 23% of pregnant women are currently vaccinated, and we know that COVID during pregnancy is bad news. Increased risk of hospital admission, ICU admission, need to be put on a ventilator, and death. Sometimes the mother is so sick and the virus is doing so much damage that we have to deliver the baby early. This is a baby that would not have been born early otherwise, and if the infant survives, they'll spend weeks or months in the NICU, and there is no guarantee that the mother will survive. Sometimes the other parent is sick too, and I've cared for premature infants in the NICU that lost both parents to COVID.
Testimony ranged from comments about health and the economy to religion to politics. There were pro-Trump signs among those outside the Statehouse, and former Ohio Treasurer Josh Mandel, running for the Republican nomination for the U.S. Senate, showed up and tweeted his support. Ranking Committee member Allison Russo put out a statement after the hearing saying there was a lot of vaccine misinformation and conspiracy during testimony. And Democratic Representative Beth Liston, who is a doctor, said the bill would lead to more disease and death, and that the hearing pandered to the conspiracy theorists and extreme groups behind the bill, giving them equal footing with health experts and the business community. Republican Health Committee Chair Scott Lips said more than 1,000 people and groups have offered testimony for and against the bill, and he said this hearing allowed people to be heard so amendments could be proposed for votes when the House returns from its break on September 14th. Speaker Bob Cupps said he and other lawmakers will talk to interested parties to determine what should happen to the bill in the future. Jo Ingles, Statehouse News Bureau.